glass. And of course, there's Spanish style, which are basically tumblers that you pour into. And then I stumbled onto one that was a 1700 English crystal cider glass with etching on it, and it's very similar to this one. So
hey guys, just to let you know, so we're about to go live here. So anything past this point is going to be broadcast on Facebook. Feel free, if you don't want to say things out loud, feel free to put stuff in the Zoom chat or shout out, whatever works. Hi, Tim.
I was going to say, Aubrey got a haircut.
So we're live on Facebook. So officially, let's open 2015 Red Hill, which is, if you're joining us, is the double label bottle versus a single label. We switched labels in between the 2 years, between 15 and 16 harvest years, so 16, 17, 18. It's a lot easier to label a bottle with one label than with two. So that was one of the reasons why we changed. But so yeah, so we're drinking Red Hill 2015 right now. We're doing the vertical tasting of 2015 and 16. So starting with the earlier year. Chuck here is our cider maker, and he's gonna talk a little bit about what is in Red Hill 2015.
I had to go back deep into the records to dig this out because 5 years ago, and I don't remember everything I do. So the 2015 Red Hill was a combination of 275 gallons of juice that we got from Farnham Hill in New Hampshire, which consisted of predominantly English bittersweet cider apples that they grow in New Hampshire. They're not common anywhere south of there. So we ordered it in, and we used it in our Jupiter's Legacy, and we also used it in this one, Red Hill. And into that, we filtered our part of our Arkansas Black blend, which includes 75% Arkansas Black and 25% Albemarle Pippin. That was about the other 50% of what went into this. So that tells you anything. This is like 50% Arkansas Black and Albemarle Pippin, 75-25 out of that. And then the other 50% was from juice that we imported from New Hampshire for specific reasons. There's not that much tannin in most American cider, so it's something we've been doing almost since the first year, the second year really, we ordered it in. So that's in there.
So on this one, I get a lot of fruit, kind of cherry.
I'm not sure. I'm not that good at tasting, but pop on that. I don't know. I get a vegetable note, which you get in white wines a lot. I'm not sure exactly where that's from, but
Like a green pepper, pyrrazine.
yeah, could be a fault even, but I hope not. I hope you like it. But I'm sorry.
Nope, that's on hers.
Okay, so yeah, we try to make sure it's still filtered and crisp, and will stand up to time.
I mean, I think it's quite toppable. I haven't had Red Hill is not usually one I reach for, and so I haven't had it in a while, and I'm enjoying it right now. Actually, a little bit of vanilla notes to it too.
Yeah, I mean it stands up being in the bottle this long, which is These are 2015 apples, if you can imagine back that far. And they were pressed in
Early
2016 or late 2015 and fermented during the winter. And it was bottled
Bottled in 2016.
bottled in April of 2016. Almost
Had a chance to mellow in the bottle a little bit, not as sharp.
4 years ago, and it was bottled on, it was bottled in 2016. The cider cans stand up to time, but don't wait that long. We're really trying to do this fast because we've got a really good one sitting here.
Yeah, we're excited to do the 16 next because the entire staff, I think, was waiting for when 16 was coming, and really excited to do both. While we're here, I wanted to introduce our assistant cider maker, David Timmerman. I'm gonna put him on, pin you there. Hi, David.
Hi.
Cheers.
So
Cheers.
David has been with us for a year and a half now, I think.
Yeah, that's about right. It'll be 2 years as of August.
But he's been a cider maker for much longer than that. Before he met us, he's been an avid home cider maker. And he has brought with him a lot of energy and willing to experiment and new ideas, and
He's brought with him skill
and a lot of skill
and palate that's probably better than mine, and I rely on it, and we bounce things off one another, and we're pretty much in agreement. But I appreciate what David has contributed, and I hope he can continue.
Yep. Cheers, David. I'm sorry I had intended to send you a couple questions so you could prep yourself a little bit, but I wanted to ask, what got you interested in cider?
It was actually the first beverage that I drank when I was in college was woodchuck. So way back when, that was probably the first alcohol that I actually enjoyed. And, I didn't drink any cider for a long time. And when I first moved down to Charlottesville, I actually went to the first cider festival at Castle Hill. And it was Albemarle CiderWorks Palm Mary was my favorite one that I tried that day. So that was when we started drinking cider again. It's when I started drinking cider again. So I've since moved on. I've got lots of other favorites too, but that day the Palm Mary tasted good.
Yeah, it's a good one to kind of sit and sip, and good in festivals too. I think it just that little bit of extra sugar in it kind of makes it easier to drink when you're drinking a whole bunch of ciders in one day. So that kind of answers my second question, which was, what was the first cider you ever had? So woodchuck was the first cider.
That was probably my first commercial cider.
Mm-hmm.
One of my first cider. My brother worked for a senator from Vermont and brought it back because woodchuck started up in the early 90s, I believe. And it actually tastes pretty good to me. And I've never had cider before. And personally, I think they made better cider then than they're making now, but that's beside the point. They still make a good product. It's just, back then it was made from apples from Vermont. Now it's beyond that. So it's not a bad product. Yeah, I could still drink it, but it's a little bit sweet for me right now.
Yeah, same.
I think they do a good job, though, that we have not had too many people that have come in the tasting room that haven't at least had woodchuck or know of woodchuck. I think they do a really good job of pushing out cider to the American public, which right now is a little bit easier than maybe 20 years ago when Woodchuck was trying to do it. When we first opened in, over 10 years ago, we had a lot of people come in the door asking if we made the stuff with alcohol as well, or not realizing that our product had alcohol in it. It's very different.
I'm hoping we're mostly past that area where people now recognize cider as an alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, for sure. Just a different idea.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Sorry, just trying to manage video content here. We're still working through Zoom a little bit. So David, another question. So you work for us part-time, but you've got other things going on in the world. Would you be willing to share with us your day job?
I did. Yeah, sure. Involves a lot of spreadsheets. In fact, I walked away from the spreadsheet about 30 seconds before I hopped onto the Zoom call here. So it's data reporting for a manufacturer. We make blades and medical devices.
It's got to be very important at this time.
We use spreadsheets here too, but it's mostly in my mind.
They're much more simple spreadsheets than the ones I work with.
Yeah. One technical thing. Hold on one second for me, Alex.
Yes.
I think my Facebook. Oh no, there it is. Never mind. I see it all now.
And Brian says his.
I lost some of the chat. I was trying to catch up on the chat and it was not updating. So in the Zoom chat, Carol says Red Hill goes really well with Chinese chicken lettuce cups. That sounds
Chicken
awesome.
lettuce cup. Never mind.
Brian from Blue Bee, who's in Richmond, Virginia, so not too far from us, says Woodchuck was also his first cider.
He also likes the original Red Hill.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about the origins of Red Hill and the Red Hill name?
So, Red Hill is a place that's about a mile from here. It's a community. There's Red Hill School, there's Red Hill Quarry, there's just Red Hill. It used to be a train depot. There is a train depot there still. It's just not operable.
They drive through.
Yeah.
The train drives by.
But so it's still there. But probably 50 to 75 years ago, they were still carrying apples to the train at all the depots up and down whatever railroad goes by the North and Southern or Chesapeake, Ohio, whichever goes down here. There were rail stops about every 15 or 20 miles. And according to Tom Burford, people sledded their apples down originally, and then they brought them down by truck, and they were hauled to points away from here. So Red Hill was one of those depots. North Garden had a train stop. Shipman, Arrington, all the way down. As far as apples were on south of here, there were rail stops. But so Red Hill is a place name, and we were looking for something to name the cider. The original Red Hill. I'm not even going to go into that story.
You should, because Brian's asking about it. We'll go into that in a sec.
All right. So the original Red Hill was kind of a happenstance. I will say it was a series of mistakes, or
I can give a little bit to the history on it. So we started our first year and we borrowed a filter from a fellow cidery, and everything came out perfectly wonderful. The second year, we were anxious to get going and raring up. We had run out of our first harvest year and we were pushing forward. And we ended up with that we bought a filter that was supposed to be sterile filter, and it wasn't. And we didn't find out until a little too late. So instead of wasting good apples and good cider, we
It was reconstituted into
combined a couple and
Red Hill,
filtered it again, and it became our original Red Hill.
by which time I had, but there was also some other things involved in it.
Some clarification and
Well, it's much deeper chemically than that, and I don't want to go too far into it, but there are certain microbes that create certain products that some people like and some people hate, and apparently Brian likes it.
it's a little bit farmyardy for
I'm
sure.
okay. Yeah, it's called Brettanomyces, and there's lactobacillus. That's enough said about that. But it creates a chemical product that's sulfur-based in the wine or cider, and it was in there. So
that would have been our Red Hill 2011,
That's
because it
correct.
was from
So
2010.
we still have a little bit. I just tasted one. It's actually our 2016 is close to that as
Without the,
we come without doing the original manipulations that we did. So so that's where Red Hill originated. We were looking for a place name that tied it to this area. And we also used a lot of pippin in it and wine sap, which is common cider apples from here. And then to try to reproduce something similar to that, we brought in the Farnham Hill juice, which has tannin in it, which English cider apples probably produce the closest flavor component to Brettanomyces or lactobacillus
naturally
that you can
without
do
that, yeah.
without having it, actually. So that's what's in it. In 2016, it's pretty well expressed. 2015, not so much.
Yeah, so we have a couple questions before we move on to the 16, or a couple comments, I guess. So Tim commented that Red Hill is tasting better than more Arizal, kind of opens up in the glass a little bit.
Which one?
15,
15.
the one we're drinking right now.
Most ciders will. Most wines will. So yeah, I need to breathe. Certainly, if there's any sulfur left in it, it might be. I'm not saying I don't get it, but some people might. And
I don't get it as much on this one.
that would, if it's H2S, it breathes, and the boiling point of H2S is 4 degrees centigrade. So once it warms past there, it's gonna gas out and you'll lose it. So if you have a wine that gives you that effect, let it sit and open. That's why they put wine in decanters, and
Certain sulfur compounds will air out for sure.
yeah, the low volatile ones like H2S. There are some that won't. One of them is Brett. So
So Ben Markey on the Facebook chat asked, do some single varietals ferment out better than others? So this is a blend, but this is, as Chuck said, mixed from a single varietal of wine sap, single varietal of pippin, and then the blend of English cider apples.
single varieties are, yeah, absolutely. Some are better than others. So there's some that just you don't even want to. You wouldn't use. I wouldn't. John Gold or Golden Delicious, or there's a bunch of them that I wouldn't do as a single variety, but they're fine to blend in. So, and that's the conventional wisdom for cider making, is you do blends to get the complexity into it. We do a number of single varieties here, and I will let them stand on their own merits, but I only did them because I thought they tasted really good when I got done with them. And there were some like Harrison and Hughes Crab that are just, they're standout flavors on their own. There are others like Black Twig and Wine Sap and Arkansas Black. We had kind of aided that with a little bit of acid from pippin, but it's essentially a single variety. Gold Rush. Those are our single variety ciders. I've had Kingston Black single variety. I've had Wixon. We have a Wixon single variety coming it stands on its own. So not every apple will do that. So there's a bunch of apples, and then there are some really standout cider apples. And you probably know which ones they are based on what we're putting in the bottle or what other people are putting in the bottle. So,
I think at this point, we're at 5:20, we gotta move on to the Red Hill 2016, which we've got right here. While I'm pouring it, Bill Putnam on the Facebook chat asked about proper he mentioned proper temperature for serving cider.
Cider is essentially a white wine. I mean, I don't know. There's arguments probably talking about what to serve it. You serve it chilled, 40 to 50 degrees. Some people think we're serving it too cold at 40 degrees.
I find it more refreshing when it's cold.
I do too, and it depends on what the temperature is outside too, and how much I've had already. But in the 40s, whatever a wine cooler takes it to. It's not a red wine.
We've had several chefs when they've come and tried cider, and they actually use their palms to kind of warm it up in the glass. And the idea is that the warmer it is, the more you can identify and taste those flavors coming in versus the temperature shock of a cold beverage on your warm mouth tongue thing. I personally prefer it chilled, even if it's not proper. I think it's tastier, but yes, ideally you'd want it at more of a.
So if you have a full glass, it starts to
degree
warm as you're drinking it. So you start at 40, and by the time you finish, it's 50.
So the 2016, as I mentioned to some people in the Zoom chat, is a single label. Is the 2015, which is a double label. We switched around that year because it's a lot easier to label with just one label. And so what are the details on 16?
I should talk about that.
Yep.
So in 2016, we used juice from Farnham Hill, again, 275 gallons. And then to that, we added one that we pressed together. It involved a red flesh crab. We thought we were going to add some red color to this. Turns out we didn't know enough about red color in cider to keep it red, but it had some really red juice went into this.
But not
And it
red.
probably caused the darker color, but, let's see. Yeah, it had about 3/4 bin of red flesh apples pressed into it. It had 3 bins of wine sap, and it had 2 bins of Albemarle pippin. So that was the other 50% of what it went into this juice. Who knows? We don't even know the origin. We don't even know the variety. It just came from an orchard that had this. It came from Amherst County, and it was red flesh.
They were using it for pollination?
They're selling it for people to make pickles and stuff out of, but he offered it to me, and I took it, and it went into this. It came out, it was like red as beet juice, but when we added sulfate, it went to dark yellow orange. So
Kind of a golden.
So we've learned some lessons from it, and we still have access to it occasionally. We've got some cuttings, and we're going to plant some trees. David's got some trees that he's planting. It's a red fleshed apple. That's all I can tell you. It has the color of beet.
So this to me has a little bit of that kind of earthiness, minerality that our single varietal wine sap has.
Yeah, but to me, it goes back closer to the original Red Hill. I don't know why, but it did.
So this one we actually entered into the Royal Bath and West show in England. Chuck and Charlotte both went over there in 2 years ago, right?
I think it was 17.
And we entered this in, and it got a silver. Actually, we're very
Actually, it got
impressed.
a silver at Glencap as well.
Yes, and Glint Cup is wonderful. Glint Cup is a Great Lakes International Cider and Perry competition. It's based out of Michigan, of course, Great Lakes, and we enter a lot of stuff in there, and they are a wonderful organization and are great at supporting cider.
I'm not sure it wouldn't score higher right now because at the time we took it, it was in the bottle less than 4 months. So things do happen in the bottle. Like I said, not always good, but this one hasn't hurt itself in the bottle. This is bottled in 2017, so it's in the bottle 3 years.
Smell it out
Close
a little
now.
bit. So Jeremy asked on the Zoom call if you wanted to preserve the red color, would you add unsulfited juice back in, or are you doomed if you use sulfite to lose color? Interesting. Before Chuck comments, because I'm going to pull David in on this too. So this year we I have made a red flesh apple cider, including some of these crabs. And we did a lot of test batches with sulfite to make sure that it wouldn't strip the red out of the color or out of the cider. So Chuck and David, if you want to comment on that.
So I will comment. We were determined to try to keep the red color, so we did not add sulfite to this batch of cider that we've done.
The new one coming up, not
It's
the
called
Red Hill.
The Orchard Blush is coming out hopefully in July if we get our label printed. It retained a lot of the, it's more orange, but it's still a rosé cider.
It's a nice coral color.
What I've heard anecdotally from other people is there are certain red fleshed apples that this is not a problem with. So one of them is red fill, because I've had red fill cider and it's a rosé, it's a pink cider. So we didn't have a lot of red fill in this. We had other red fleshed apples, but we did not put sulfite in it, and so it's retained somewhat of a rosé character. So going forward, I just learned at a meeting that we had with the Virginia Cider Makers Association from Megan Herford, who's, there is a product that prevents oxidation of color, and it's, maybe shouldn't say it, but anyhow, I will. It's Glutastar. I've been looking it up. I'm gonna get some, and if we get this again, I'm gonna use it in lieu of sulfite. So Glutastar prevents oxidation in white wines. So I'm gonna try it in any red flesh I get in the future. So, but just beware, if you have red fill only, you might be able to sulfite it. If you've got other red fleshed apples, you might want to test it before you throw sulfite in on it.
So we tested ours out, and it did, after putting sulfite in, turn a little brownish and more kind of the golden copper color rather than the red. So we had to.
I just put in a link to the Instagram post of our wine sap juice before the people fermented out too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. But,
In the Facebook chat.
so anyhow, I hope that helps people if they're interested.
I will say
David,
that,
do you have any comments?
yeah, so we ended up getting kind of a light pink color in the Orchard Blush, and some of that had to do with the varieties that we used. It was probably about 50% true red fleshed apples, which is Geneva crab and that crab that's in the Red Hill. And then it was also about 50% Dolgo crabs, which are not a true red fleshed apple, but their juice is pink when you press it. So had we had 100% red fleshed apples, we might have had a more intense red color than what we got. But it does have those flavors that you find in the red fleshed apples, which are, watermelon and raspberry and strawberry. There's some fruit character that's in those red fleshed apples that you get from other apples.
Yeah, but it was, when we finished with it, before we started fermenting, it was red, it was pink. So yeah, you lose some of it chemically. We're still working on it. We hope you'll like our Orchard Blush when it comes out, but
We're hoping, we've got it, fastest label approval through TTB ever, less than 24 hours. And we have it in ABC right now. So hopefully it'll be out by our anniversary in July. Really quick, we'll head back and talk more about Red Hill 2016, but I wanted to wish a couple people happy birthday. We have Elaine and John, I think, who ordered bundles to celebrate birthdays. And
oh, yeah.
I wanted to give a cheers to that and happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Should we sing?
No.
No.
Your birthday present is we won't sing.
Your birthday present is we won't sing, says Alex, our behind the scenes manager here.
And also Bill and Mary. Also their birthday.
Oh, and
Oh,
Bill
yeah.
Putnam, also, yes. So Bill and Elaine and John, happy birthday to all of you.
Charlotte.
And Charlotte, who
And then
is,
if we're gonna go full and me tomorrow.
Charlotte, who is Chuck's sister, her birthday was 2 days ago. And Alex, our behind the scenes manager here, her birthday is tomorrow, which is a time
Holy
of
mackerel.
birthdays. Indeed.
It's on flood.
The week.
But happy birthday to everyone who had birthdays this week, which
All the
there
best
are many
people.
of them, all the best people, as Alex says. She's not biased.
So I was like a half a year older on the 26th.
You had a half birthday.
Yeah. Cheers to me.
Also important. I did want to comment, so on the Facebook chat, on the live stream, we posted a picture of the wine sap juice before the color, before it was fermented, so it was a little pink and has a good color, just to show you what kind of that fermentation and oxidation will do to the color.
David came home and started drinking without Megan. Megan's still working.
Oh.
They're commenting on it. Oh,
Ooh,
It's 5:32. She
who
should
got
be
a
able to
red
drink
flush?
now.
Somebody had a red flush.
David, was that you? No.
Somebody just eating a red fleshed apple.
No, just showing a red fleshed apple. Oh, Bobby did it. Go for it, Bobby. So for people wondering what a red fleshed apple looks like, if Bobby can recreate, there he goes. So that is the red fleshed crab that we got, unnamed red fleshed crab. And so that's kind of what lends the juice its color.
But not in, because we sulfited it out.
It's not in our Red Hill. We're getting ahead of ourselves and enjoying future products.
It's okay. This is free.
I will
form.
say, we have had discussions about using the Red Hill label for a rosé cider because it does have red in the name. But we do like this blend too much and
Red Hill comes
want to
from
keep
the
it how
red
it's
and-
at.
Red in the dirt, so.
Yep. So what does anyone have comments or questions on the 2016 Red Hill? Because the new one. Pouring myself some more because it's one of my favorites. We hope that we can kind of recreate this caliber every year. 16, was it a dry year or what year? Do you remember?
No idea. I know 18 was a wet year.
18 was a wet year, 19 was a dry year.
I think it was pretty much, well, it might have been wet, but, so we have data on what went into it. If that's any interest, so,
Like what kind of yeast?
yeah, in the 2015, which had raw pippin or Albemarle pippin, wine sap, and Farnham Hill. The raw pippin had a 8.1 ABV. The wine sap had a 6.9 ABV that year. But the blend of Red Hill had a 7.1 ABV. It has 2 grams per liter residual sugar. The yeast used were a combination, obviously, Pippin, we used Alchemy 1, we had a Wild East, and we had a Cross Evolution. And the wine set we use Alchemy 1, and then the Farnham Hill is we EC 1118. These are all built from Scott Labs. EC 1118 is Lallemand. Alchemy 1 is Anchor. And Cross Evolution is Lallemand, I think. I'm not sure about that one. And the Wild is whatever it is. So the 2016, both of these have about 7.0 ABV finally. The 2016 has 5 grams per liter residual sugar, which I'm not sure how I try to take everything to almost less than 1 when it's dry, but this one retains some. The Royal Pippin that year was lower. It's 7.8 ABV, but that's comparable. So they were pretty much weather-wise similar.
It sounds like a wetter year though, because of the low ABVs.
Possibly 7.33 for the wine sip is actually higher. So I don't think that was a significant difference.
That brings me a little bit. I know you're about this, but Ben Markey on the Facebook chat asked, can you taste the difference between an apple picked at your place and a variety picked elsewhere? Say Carter's, which we don't do much with Carter's, but with other orchards in Nelson County or elsewhere. How does the land affect the taste?
Oh no, but we have I'm not going to name them because it would open them up. And but yes, wine sep is not always wine sep. So wine sep has different strains. There's a modern version that's not as conducive to cider making as the old-fashioned one that we like. We have it growing here, and we get it from other orchards, and it's different. I'm not sure it's the orchard or the strain. So but if you get in wine sep that has a real deep purple peel, and it puts red into the color when you press it, that is one that we like. So that's as much as I can go into.
So that's splitting out the question into 2 different things, which is the terroir, which is where it's grown, and then the variety. So there are multiple variations on wine sap apples, just as there's multiple variations on Red Delicious and Granny Smith. And there are definitely variations that we prefer to others.
Yeah. I would think in the spline of the Blue Ridge, which we're in, that it's more due to the variety, the varietal strain, than it is to the growing condition, because it's very similar growing conditions all up and down the eastern Blue Ridge, which is where we're getting most of our apples. So Ben, you're in a pretty good area, I think, for growing.
We don't need to comment on where that is.
If you have, I'm not saying where it is, but if you get a good variety of wine sep growing, you should be able to produce a great cider from it. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, I think there is a bit on terroir, but I see more of a difference state by state than just regionally. Regionally, I see more varietal variation.
So yeah, well, for one, apples grown in New Hampshire have a lower sugar level because of where they're grown.
On the Zoom chat, our assistant cider maker, David, commented that the Farnham Hill juice we blend into Red Hill is usually lower ABV, which might bring the ABV down. In general, we get more sugar in Virginia apples versus New England.
That's correct. So the further south you go, the warmer it is, the more sugar, the more ripening you get, and the higher sugar level. That's moderated somewhat by local climate. Like if you have a lot of rain, the sugar level is going to go down. If you have a drier year, it's just like grapes. Your sugar level is going to go up. You're going to have a higher ABV. I really didn't think that made that much difference until this year. Our 2019 ciders,
Everything.
everything,
2019,
everything is superior to what we've done.
It was a dry year in 2019 for sure.
But yeah, the Farnham Hill juice is lower in sugar, but it's also, excuse me, it's also British cider apples, apparently, at least the ones grown in New Hampshire.
Bittersweets tend to have a little lower sugar
content. A lot lower in sugar content. So, but we get them because of their tannin levels. So it brings another dimension into what we can do here.
So we have one last question here. If anyone has anything, speak now, forever hold your peace. Feel free to chat either or shout out, whatever. So Bill asked, any experimental batches going on in different fermentation vessels to complement the coloring you like? So we usually use stainless steel. We have, I don't believe we've experimented in different fermentation vessels like wood or clay or plastic.
Yeah.
Well, we've done plastic, but because it was a smaller tank.
I'm using apples for my source of juice. It's not that vessel that I'm doing it in. So we use basically white wine fermenters. For small batches, I have a little poly 80-gallon fermenter that I can use. That's basically logistics.
We're hoping to upgrade to a small batch stainless steel fermenter.
I would love it.
It's on Chuck's wish list.
But
his birthday's in October. You might get it.
Anyhow, no, I'm not. So, and we don't have any new apples coming on the Wixon and this coming out hopefully this summer, and our Orchard Blush Red Flesh. I think should satisfy a lot of people as far as anything new coming out of here.
Yeah, so we do have the 2 new ciders coming out. We do a single varietal Wixon and a single and then the Red Flesh cider, which is a blend of the Red Flesh crabs, the Doggo crab, the Redfield, Geneva crab, and Burford Red Flesh.
Yeah.
So we have those. We're kind of experimenting more with apple varietals rather than fermentation and process experimentation. Ben Markey says you should get a GoFundMe for your tank. He's been eyeing it for a while, Ben.
Well, they weren't available in that size, but I saw one at CiderCon that was just right. So, and they make them to spec. So
he'll probably get it within the year. It's going to happen.
Goldilocks tank.
Yes, Goldilocks tank, just the right size. David commented, our assistant cider maker, David Timmerman, commented on Zoom, if you wanted to taste some of the New Hampshire cider just by itself, our CC5 right now, our Cider Maker's Choice number 5, is 100% of that that English bittersweet apple juice that we get from up in New Hampshire at Farnham Hill. The rest went into the 2018 Red Hill, which we haven't gotten to yet, but I'm excited to taste. Maybe that'll be the next one. Maybe we'll do like
made one, but anyhow.
Maybe we'll do a vertical of 5 years in a row.
A typical.
2 is about the max of what I can do in one night. So 2 or 3. So just we're getting about to the end of our time. Just thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to we're doing another one of these in 2 weeks with Charlotte, Chuck's sister, our owner, and she's doing 1817 in Virginia Hughes Crab. So you can buy that tasting bundle on our website and get that delivered or pick it up. We're enjoying doing these with you and connecting with you guys as we go through.
Because we're not doing anything else.
Yeah, we're a little lonely here by ourselves. We're used to talking to each other. We're missing talking with you guys. I just have one more question from Ben. that apple have a name? Does the
red flesh.
the random red flesh crab? We call it the red flesh crab from the
I call
orchard
it,
that we get it from, but I don't think it has a specific name.
I call it Bergier red,
Yeah.
because that's the
Where it
name of the
comes
guy I
from.
get it from. And it came from a tree from his relative in Amherst County. Red flesh, I just quickly, bud 9 rootstock is a red fleshed apple.
So for those who don't know, rootstock is apples don't grow true from seed. So to propagate a specific variety, you have to take a piece, like very small, 2-inch piece of the tree that you want to replicate and put it on a rootstock. So the root provides the root system. And a popular rootstock is
Budovsky 9, which is a Russian rootstock, but I've seen it here in our nursery, and I've seen it growing in other orchards where it sprouted out from the rootstock and it produces a red fleshed apple. So I went to an interesting seminar on red fleshed apples at one of the cider cons recently, and there is a gene that causes red color in apple flesh, and all red fleshed apples have it except for 3 in the world that they know of. And so it's out there. And so this could have been this could have been a sprout from a rootstock. So it doesn't have a name.
We just have named it Bergier crab.
But the #1 cider apple that has red flesh that I know of in most of America is Red Phil, which came from Geneva, New York repository. The Geneva crab actually came from the Geneva, New York repository. But if you go, I went to a seminar at CiderCon 2 where Gideon Cole was presenting, and Albert Etter.
Gideon Cole is the owner of Original Sin Cider.
Yeah, Albert Etter.
Who is a pomologist.
He also produced a Wixon.
Albert Etter is a pomologist out of California.
He produced a Wixon crab, but he also produced a pink pearl, which is red flesh. But and he had 35 red flesh varieties he was growing. So in Michigan, they're doing research on red fleshed apples, and there's one up. It's called Otter something. So their red fleshed apples are getting a lot of attention in the cider world.
So
this is just one of them.
So David and Bobby, in response to Ben, said that we should have a naming contest for it.
Okay.
We'll work on that. Really quick, I know I said I was about to end, but I want to, David, because you did a little bit of research on this, what is the compound that makes red fleshed apples red? Do you remember?
Anthocyanins is the name of the I think it's like an antioxidant that apples have in them that's in the skins. It's the same thing that turns apple skins red, and some apples have it in the flesh, and that's what causes the flesh to be red. I don't know any of the chemistry beyond that. That's
Like,
the maximum.
Same thing it causes orange and carrots. It's a xanthocyanin, and it's in cherries. I mean, but there is a gene in apples, and it specifically causes red flesh. And there's research being done on this in Colorado. There's a lot of work going on in Michigan. So they're trying to determine the cause of it, but it all traces back to Kazakhstan. And there was a red fleshed apple in Kazakhstan originally. And so all red flesh traces back, and it's genetic. So it's the R7 gene or allele on that causes red flesh in apples. So
getting very technical. We might have to get someone
You know, it doesn't matter if you find one, use it.
It is a good, they usually are pretty good. As David mentioned earlier, kind of there's what you think of with red, raspberry, strawberry, rhubarb. Kinda red.
So we have
notes.
here, we have red fill, we've planted, we have Geneva crab, and we have Burford red flesh, which actually was found in Clifford, Virginia. It's called the Clifford. Tom Burford helped discover that, I think, and it's called Burford red flesh.
Mhm.
And there are people growing that as well. And I think Haken Cider in Colorado has actually produced
They did a single varietal.
single variety Burford red flesh. So to look at the tree, they all have red leaves or tinted red. They have really deep pink flowers, almost purple. And the apples are red flesh. So they're distinctive.
Yeah.
So there's something different about them. And
So we're gonna sign off here shortly. Thanks everyone who joined us. If you're interested, at 7 p.m. tonight, Blue Bee Cider is doing a fireside
Tuesday.
chat. Or is it
Oh.
Tuesday soon?
no, that's next week. The first.
They have a fireside chat tonight, yes.
They have a fireside chat tonight. So join them at 7 p.m. Same place, same time. Well, different time, same place.
Oh, it's Jake.
Yep.
Hey, Jake.
Thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna end the live stream now and cut it back to the Zoom call. And happy birthday to all the birthdays out there. And enjoy. Red Hill.
Jeremy, for the fireside chat, I would go to the Blue Bee Facebook page.
Go to the Blue Bee Facebook page
There's an
for
event
the
for
fireside
it,
chat.
and I'm sure there's info there.
Yes. Highly recommend. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
So Jake was,
Yeah. Hey guys, sorry. Thank you guys for joining us all. We're here for a little bit longer if anyone wants to chat or do whatever. We're just no longer officially live.
Goodbye, guys.
There we go.
wow.
Hey, guys.
There's-
For doing this.
Hey Tim, how are
We're good.
Has Pippin
John?
given you a haircut there with that?
No, yeah, it's we were doing sword fights and lots of inappropriate with children.
you? Yours is so big.
Yeah, she's gotten big.
Aw. So sweet.
You guys say bye.
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 Hi.
See you next time.
Oh man.
Going, bye.
They do like-
Bye. I love how Bobby like just went into David's frame for a second and then just sort of went back out. There he is.
Yeah.
Let's get some cider.
So for those on the call who don't know, Bobby and David are in the same place. They live together and they just decided to look like they're in separate locations, but they're in the same location.
It's too nice to not be outside right now. So
Gorgeous, for sure. I'm pouring another glass of the 2016 Red Hill because I think that's my favorite out of the two.
And we are still.
It's really tart. It's really fruity.
Are we still on? Let me fix that.
I have both of them.
yeah, the little